So we're grateful. Thank you, everyone, for being here, everyone on Facebook. Last week we had, 1,100 people watching, so I watch that number daily. It's amazing. Not a lot of comments. And so for those who are at home, this is what I found on my way into church, and what it is a great reminder of is that we are always connected, even when we feel like we've fallen. Right? So we'll talk a little bit about that. And we're talking about the book, the study that we're doing, and all of you at home are also welcome. Excuse me, let me get the right microphone on. There we go. Who have we come here to be? It's like a coffee table book. It's 101 possibilities for contemplation. And so what I found, this book was, I think, published in 12, maybe 14, and so this is my second copy already of it, because you use it and there's an affirmation, and now what they've come up with are actually card decks as well. So you can pull a card, for those of us that like to do that in the morning, and then see what it means. And so the whole idea behind this book for me is, do you realize how many gifts you have? And do you realize that you're that special, that you are that needed in this world, and not special in a unique way, although we're all unique, unrepeatable expressions of God, but special in a way that your presence matters. It matters here, and it matters to those whose lives that you touch. And so I think this is a great, I didn't put it up there. So I have a story. I forgot what I put on the screen. So the story goes like this. There's a boy who asked his dad, "Dad, what's the size of God?" And the father looked up into the sky and he saw a plane, and he asked his son, "What's the size of the plane in the sky?" And the little one replied, "Well, it's very small. I can hardly see it." And then the dad decided, let's go to the airport. So they drove over to the airport, and as they approached, there was a plane on the runway. And he said to his son, "How big is that plane?" And the young kid says, "Wow, Dad, it's huge." And he says, God's size depends on how close or how far you are away from God. The closer you are to God, the greater and greater God will be in your life. That's it. We're going to go have hospitality now. And it's interesting, as I have people in my life who are not on a spiritual path. There's not many of those, but the ones that are, or who come into my life to help me remember why I am on the path. It's interesting because the question is God that important in your life? And I want to say, what is that? What does the word "that" mean? Because God is important in my life. I know that. And I hope every day that you are engaging. When I put this piece on Facebook this morning, I said, "How goes your closer walk with God today?" Because what I know is I did not have to panic when my leg didn't work, because I could go to prayer. Then I reached out to other people. But that's the process. If you can, when the shift hits in your life, whatever that is, and that's shift with an F, we get to take a moment and breathe. And when we have a life of prayer, or live a life as prayer, and have a relationship with God, it allows us all to go, "Oh, wait a minute. Let me stop for a moment and let me be." So we're talking about who have we come here to be with this book, which is about the divine nature that we talked about last week as well. God living in, through, and as each of us. I'm going to work on my hands. Not working so much on a Sunday, but that hasn't happened yet. With there we go. All of my lessons in speaking and, all right, back at it. So the very presence of God as us. Again, reiterating that always this life of spirit is one of an inside journey. It's about me and my relationship to my journey, to the God of my understanding. You all just happen to be great accoutrements, so to speak, on my journey. So my journey is different than Pam's, that's different than Theta's, that's different than Pat's, right? It's about our attitude. It's about our gratitudes. How do we go there? What are we doing? How do we stop blaming either ourselves or others in our lives and acknowledging instead that we're beings of spirit? We are spiritual beings. Colossians chapter 1, verse 19 says, "For in him all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell." So I've been trying to find scripture verses that I'm not real familiar with. So this could be also read, "For in her all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell." So where does God dwell? Inside each of us. Inside each of our puppies and our kitties and our squirrels and our birds. And today, as I was in my new home sanctuary by myself, had all the windows open and hear all those birds that are around at 5 and 5:30 in the morning that I don't even know what they were, but they were having quite a symphony. And we were having a prayer meeting. So our purpose in life is to express, or what Eric Butterworth would say, press out the ideas and the qualities that make up our divine nature. Press out, show, demonstrate. And that divine nature has two words: I am. And remember, I've told you that I is for intention, A is for attention, and M is for manifestation. So what our intention and attention goes on manifests in our life. That was very much demonstrated to me as I was not being aware of the whispers that my body has been giving me over the last couple of weeks. And I saw something on Facebook that said, listen to the whispers of your body so then your body doesn't have to scream. My body was screaming to say, hello, I need your attention, okay? And so that's how Spirit has always gotten my attention, through my body. And so to again get back into purpose of, oh wait, what needs my attention? Oh, maybe my heart, right? Maybe my processing. Oh, I forgot to journal this morning. Imagine that. So what happens is if we don't keep processing and keep pressing out who we've come here to be, it gets backed up. Yeah, it gets backed up. Someone said to me, you were literally paralyzed, which is what happens if your leg doesn't work, right? So I think what's interesting is that as we get to consciously know our oneness, that there is no separation from God, therein lies the real identity of who we are, the basis of our character. So the musician, for example, Penny, has to realize her oneness with the principle of music if she's going to bring it forth, correct? So this morning at 8:30, as we were both driving here, I decided to text, hey, do you know the Face of God song? She came in and said, I do. Is that what you want to play this morning instead of what we already thought we were going to play? I said, yes, Spirit's having its way with me. So if she had said no, it would have been okay too. Are we listening? Are we listening? And to know that we're the face of God is a huge, huge gift to us. The mathematician must be consciously one with the principle of mathematics if they are going to produce correct answers. So principle is something that shows up in many different ways in our lives. And as each of us lives from principle, that God is and we are, right, the first two unity principles, then what happens is the oneness that we share with God allows us to have a life that's full and complete. Butterworth says we are already one with God, and God is the source of all the desires that are for good. So as we desire to say, yes, I want to be on the fellowship team, right? That's a good thing. So then you get to figure out what does that look like if you say yes to that, right? Because what we know and what we say here at Unity is let your yes be yes and let your no's be no. So if we're going to manifest the good that is inherently ours, we have to know that it's already ours. It's our divine inheritance. And we have to know our right relation to God. And that's one with God. So as my leg and my hip and whatever else was happening on Wednesday stopped me, and I have a very busy mind and very, very active, up and down 17 stairs, that's what I do. It stopped me enough to say, wait a minute, what am I not looking at? Where am I in relation to the God of my understanding? What am I holding on to that's time to let go of? And so you get to ask yourself all these kinds of questions. So in the book, Gary Simmons, who in Unity is the one who started this whole mission-centric concept so that Unity wouldn't die. And that was back in 2000. And I got to be part of that as I graduated and was ordained in 2006 to go out and work with churches so that they would be mission-driven versus minister-centric. Because it doesn't really matter what I want if in fact it's not serving you as a congregation or you as a congregation that happens to be watching us, right? Or how, and I've had this conversation with Ty, how can we serve you as a family, you and Diane and your children? Because we don't have other kids here. So those are the questions I keep asking and the board does. And here's what Gary Simmons says. Notice something in yourselves that is the capacity to express your behavior. He says, I can only characterize someone as arrogant, for instance, when I too am identified with my inferior self. Right? So we see something good in another. Why? Because I am that. And that's what our class today will be all about. The same is true when I notice an inspiring quality, he says. The capacity to notice this happens because an intrinsic quality of my own being resonates with that I find admirable in someone else. So we've heard it said here that we're really just mirrors for each other, right? So those that I admire and look up to are mirrors of my own magnificence. Whatever you long to experience outside of you is an aspect of you wanting to be birthed. That's what this whole book is about. Birthing new realities for you. Maybe I remember I taught this Fort Wayne, Indiana. And someone came up to me and she said, I'm gonna do what you asked me to do yesterday. And I said, okay. This was on Friday, so this was Saturday. And I said, all right. She said, you just wait till I show up tomorrow at church on Sunday. I'm like, all right. So she walks in and she has a skirt on and, Sunday apparel. I'm thinking, oh, how cute she looks. She said it's the first time she's ever worn a skirt in public. That's a big deal. She said, you gave me the courage to understand that that's all I had to do was choose what I wanted to show up as today. And I want to show up as a woman wearing a skirt. Well, of course, everybody else was like, woo-woo, I didn't know you had legs, and, all those other things that would happen. And like, oh, how fun. But for her and I, we had that moment of, I hear you. And so I'm still in touch with this woman. It's amazing that she just wanted to be something different. Though this is who you have come here to be, is the only action required in any given moment, means that you get to connect with your wholeness. Penny and I talk about that all the time. This other thing that's happening, it's just happening. It's not the truth of who you are. So when I called her on Wednesday and said, I need some prayers, she's like, well, remember, not the truth of who you are, right? Love that when you can have somebody lovingly reflect back to you. As this becomes your internal reality, it cannot help but become your external reality. They are one and the same. So just another way of looking at our third unity principle, which is thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. Garbage in, garbage out. That's not Fillmore. right? Get rid of your stinking thinking, right? So usually we wrongly expect that someone or something outside of us is the source for our good, or the source of what's not so good. Because I could have easily gone to blaming somebody when my hip hurt, right? Doesn't help us. We all fall asleep, he says, to our own creative powers and the truth that all of our life experience is based on our creation. And I love this, and I'm going to make sure, because I don't see Kaylee here. Caprice's Kaylee is a scientist at 13. This is not just some mystical mumbo-jumbo for the enlightened ones, quote unquote, of past ages, far away on mountaintops. This is science. How we talk to ourselves is how it is we are going to live. And it gets into quantum physics and all that kind of stuff. What we think we see is not what is. Course of Miracles. We must have faith in things unseen. We do not live in a world fixed, that's solid and unchanging. We live in a world of infinite possibility, where every possibility exists right here, right now, until the moment we decide otherwise. It is our belief, our faith, which creates, and it is the quality of this faith that brings about an experience of heaven or hell in each moment. I'll talk a little bit about the authors when we're together. So the science is clear. We really are the ones we've been waiting for. And I know I've had people say to me, you always talk about us. Me, I. Yes, with a capital M and a capital I. Because if we take care of ourselves, then we are there then giving the clear way, getting rid of all the cobwebs for God to express through us and as us and touch each other's lives. So it begins on the inside with the knowing that we're one with God. And I've said this before, we just use one finger for that, right? And to say, yes, I am worthy. I am worthy to be healthy. I am worthy to be whole. I am worthy to have a mortgage at 61 years old, right? And know all will be well. And it takes surrender by denying any false concepts, whatever those things are that we've made up in our mind, so that we can prepare by affirming ourselves in right relation to God. Some of the benefits could be better health, more knowledge, the ability to reach our goals, more loving, more happiness, more peace, more prosperity, affirmation that when we go to Greenville, we're going to find our perfect apartment, which happened, right? Thought she already had the perfect apartment until she got there, and then, not so much, right? So are you willing to say yes and step into all of the bigness that life can give us? That's the question. Who have you come here to be? So in Prosperity, the book that Fillmore wrote on page 45 and 46, he emphasizes this. There is a guiding intelligence always present we can lay hold of, which means call forth. Not something we're going to go and get and then somehow apply. We lay hold of it. We call it forth and make it our own. It is ours. This intelligence belongs to us. It is our birthright to know it and to use it. Through each of us, God is bringing into outward manifestation that which exists in the ideal. So, for example, joy expressed as Pam today, yes, as she was doing the daily word. Kindness through Liz, who makes sure we all have our bulletins. Wholeness through the demonstration of Penny showing up in the midst of her treatments to be music here. Leadership through Marie as our board president. And then I can go on and on and on, yes? Catherine, Nancy, and all of those who help with fellowship. And then we have Pat and Colin who say, hey, let's have meditation. So we go on and on and on. That's what it looks like when we're seeing the divine manifesting through people we know. Is this their only quality? Absolutely not. We know that because we spend our lives with them. Fillmore says, when manifest man, so that's people, which is each of us, looks at the universe in which we live, we often discount our own value that we give to the creation of our lives. We think we are only here, he says, for a brief span of time, through which we must strive for material possessions and make a living, quote unquote. And as we know, in my life, and as we spend more time in unity, the enlightenment that comes to us is that there is no limit to life. It's eternal, no matter what shape my soul is in, right? So we're not here to strive for material possessions and that he with the most toys wins. Remember that phase? That's called orange consciousness on the spiral of dynamics. So we get to see that we get to add to our life in God's kingdom, which is the realm here, right now, of our divine ideas. So we all said, we want a place to meet that's sacred, that is ours. And what did we manifest last year? CBY, yes? Thank you again to that team. And then God's righteousness, so the right use of ideas, which is why we're going to have a meeting about how we're going to use this facility correctly as renters. So as we evolve, we begin to realize that we are not here, Fillmore says, to make a living. He says, you are here to live your making, and your making will make your living. Let me say it again. We are not here to make a living. We are here to live our making, and our making will make our living. So one more thing from Eric Butterworth. He wrote this in August of 1975. One of the more interesting stories of the Gospels is that of Jesus coming upon Peter, James, and John while they were fishing. Remember, they're out in their boat and they're not having a lot of luck, right? So Jesus called to them to launch out into the deeper water and let down their nets, which they did. And, as the story goes, they were fantastically drafted with fish. That's how he wrote it. This amazing experience caused them to forsake their occupation as fishermen and instead to follow Jesus as a disciple. Butterworth says, we can imagine those who have been acquainted with those three were quite startled by this sudden change in what it is they were going to do. There must have been much disapproval and misunderstanding, and the men were probably called fanatics for their actions. It's almost like my own story. It is said today that religion has its place, but there is no point, Butterworth says, in getting fanatical about it. He says, actually, the word fanatic is derived from the Latin word which means inspired by divinity. Who wants to be fanatical? In this sense of the word, we could use it more, not less. Going further, Butterworth says, with the analogy of the gospel story, unless we are willing to launch out into the deeps of spirit, there's little hope for us. We can paddle about in the shallows of thinking and living, and we never really swim or express our potential until we push away from the shore and get into the depths of spirit. The message that Jesus called out to his disciples to be, dare to step out into the depths of your innate potential and meet life with new boldness. To prompt this step, a little insecurity can often be a good thing. So this fall, we're sharing the journey of who have we come here to be. In this book, we have, like I said, we sold out all that we have. We have more coming. And the book, I hope, will assist you, as it has assisted me over these years, in answering questions about who have I come here to be today. But what it really does, it inspires us to ponder the possibilities of being something we never thought we could be. Magnificent, playful, luscious, lively, radiant, exciting, silly, ingenuous, zealous, beautiful, edgy, courageous, and dynamic. Those are the words and the qualities of being that Jim's going to highlight next week. So let's close our outer eyes and go into a time of meditation. Thinking about what Butterworth said, can we dare to step out of the depths of our innate potential to meet life with new boldness, a new audacity of sorts? No matter our age, numbers are irrelevant. Where is your attitude? How full is your gratitude? How clean is your thinking? So during this time of meditation, we take a moment to concentrate on our breathing. And we use our breath as a tool to take us ever deeper within, where each of us meets the God of our understanding. We breathe into this knowing that we matter, that our presence makes a difference, as yours does each week when you're here. Each time you send a card to another, or a phone call, or have a prayer, we acknowledge the existence of the divine in another. We acknowledge within each other, through this interchange of understanding the divinity that is in another, that the self with a capital S is unchanging and always real. And it allows us then to move into right relation with God, to know that we are the hands and the feet, the words and the very presence of the divine in each and every moment. Remember that we're born in the image and after the likeness of God. And yet, sometimes we think we're making God in our image. So I invite you to back that up and go, oh, wait a minute, no, I'm here as the image and likeness of all that is great and good. Who have I come here to be? What is uniquely mine to do? Those are the questions. And every time we falter thinking, oh, that's a little risky, take a moment and remember and remind yourself of the indwelling presence that is God within. Remind yourself of your oneness and knowing that you are a perfect child of God and that your presence matters. Breathe into this knowing. Embrace your magnificence. And breathe, and breathe, and breathe. It helps us move from our head to our heart. It helps us hear what our bodies might be telling us when we live in our heart. We live from our heart. And heart math tells us that our heart is actually bigger than our brain. So there's more intelligence of love, of compassion, of kindness, of being on purpose. And so as we go into a time of silence, we think of something that makes us grateful and brings a smile to our face as we allow gratitude to have its way in, through, and as us in this moment, with grateful hearts in the silence. As we bring our attention back to this time and this place, I invite us for each and every morning to say to yourself before your feet hit the floor, the best years of my life are yet to be. Thank you, God. And breathe into that knowing that there is something that wants to press out from you to touch the world as you be who you have come here to be. Blessing us with your presence, knowing that you matter. And so it is, and so we let it be, as we pray this in the name and after the nature, and under the authority of the living, loving presence that is each of us. We are grateful for all of those whose shoulders we stand upon here at Unity Spiritual Center. And for all of our blessings, seen and unseen, we are grateful. Amen. And we move into a time of gratitude.